All right. And you thought we made mistakes before. You thought this was a amateur production before. Try doing it when you literally walk into the door of your house 2 minutes before the podcast is supposed to start, and simultaneously you're trying out a whole new platform called StreamYard. Thank you to Dell from Dell's Arcade for the recommendation. But here we are. This is what, episode six of the Coin Jam podcast. And this one's all about monitors. I know myself and all of us actually have been dealing with monitors quite a bit lately, and figured that would be a great topic to talk about. So as people are filing in, we'll say hello to Russell from Colorado. Yeah, thanks, Kay, for joining. Stock Jock, what's going on? Probably found a free Discs of Tron machine on the side of the road. Maybe that's something we need to talk about. And Russell also says Charlie needs a time machine. I've thought about that a lot, actually, time travel and how it can be abused. And I think that the safest form of time travel is probably just the ability to do the Zach Morris timeout and just pause time, right? Allowing you to do the things that you need to do if you've been procrastinating or whatever. But yeah, and we all kinds of stuff going on. Liam, did you turn your camera on? I think I'm seeing you in StreamYard, but not on the YouTube studio. But
I'm seeing myself on the YouTube stream.
Yeah, I see him.
Oh, good. We are good to go. I was behind on that. Anyway, awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Charlie. Welcome to episode 6 of the Coin Jam podcast. As always, I am joined by my compatriots, my brothers in Cade. We have Jeremiah from Coin Op Corner on YouTube. We have Liam, who is one half or perhaps now 1/3 of the Retro Robotics team on YouTube. And we also have Kay from Prime Arcade on Facebook, on TikTok, technically on YouTube, but more of a TikTok and Facebook sort of thing. And Liam, do you want to quickly introduce everyone to our newest co-host?
This is Ripley. We just adopted her, and she is more than a handful. As a Siberian Husky and Collie mix, we think, who is just as mischievous as both breeds. And I'm probably going to be preoccupied with making sure she doesn't eat my computer, considering she's only 6 months old. So that's sort of where we're at with that. The newest acquisition of our arcade dog.
Very cool. And I know Kay's got a couple of dogs there in the background too, right? Five of them.
Including a husky.
Holy smokes. And anyone that watches my videos knows that, from time to time, Teddy, the arcade dog, likes to make an appearance, sometimes with completely inappropriate content that belongs on his OnlyFans. And Jeremiah doesn't have a dog, I don't think, but Molly's got to be around there somewhere, right? That's not Molly in the corner behind your shoulder?
Oh, no, that's a stunt double.
Oh, that's I was just going to say that's Molly's stunt double. But yeah, so here we go with I think originally we were supposed to do this podcast yesterday, or at least that's what we had discussed. And there I had the brave Jumpin' General, what's up? Thanks for joining. Yesterday, being the brave father of 4 that I am, I took all 4 kids on my own yesterday, impromptu. I took them to Target and promised them junk food for dinner and ice cream as dessert at Sonic Drive-In. And I'm standing there, and they all had Target gift cards from their birthdays earlier this year. And there I am standing in the toy aisle trying to, explain, budgeting and economics to a 4-year-old when the podcast chat starts blowing up on Discord. And I think Kay was the first one to say, hey, are we still starting, at normal time tonight? And I had one of those, oh crap moments, right? Fortunately or unfortunately, as it may be, Liam was getting absolutely blasted by like a microcell.
We got a warning. It was like 80-mile-an-hour winds incoming to your area, and the lights started flickering, and the warning then updated and said quarter-sized hail incoming. And I went, oh no, this can't be good.
And that's
just
at
sounds
your,
like a regular Tuesday night in Kentucky.
Yeah, well, that's at your new podcast studio, Liam, right? This is the first time I think you're
The one
joining us
that
from
has
there.
no lights yet.
Because I think last time you were still in the process of moving and even joined from the road. So let me pull up.
Did join from the road, but we're everything has its challenges, including this dog who thinks I am a chew toy.
So we called an audible last night and decided to push to today, also because I had completely forgotten to do any kind of promotion or anything whatsoever. So thank you for everyone that joined, that saw the community post on YouTube or Twitter or PMs on Discord or Clav or whatever. Thanks everybody for joining. Sounds like Jeremiah is jealous of Liam's dinner. Maybe Jeremiah hasn't eaten yet. Yeah, so let's get this show on the road, as they say. So, we'll do all the sort of normal updates that we typically talk about, recent pickups and project updates and upcoming things and that sort of thing. And then we'll shift our focus to talking about monitors, trials and tribulations, the pros and cons of different models, the ones we like working on, the ones we, seem to always have headaches with, that sort of thing. And, as always, any questions or anything y'all have for us, please leave them in the live chat. We love engaging with you all. Cybermind Arcade, thanks for joining. Yeah, I'm sure Ripley does want that pizza crust from Liam.
Yeah, well, I want the pizza crust more because this is the first thing I've had the chance to eat today. Just like you, I got home less than about 20 minutes before the podcast started, and I only had enough time to take the dog out and put the pizza in the oven.
Well, and as you're still forming this relationship with this, newly adopted dog, you have to establish dominance, right? If you allow it to literally steal the food out of your mouth, that sort of whole alpha relationship will be upended.
Yeah, so far she's been very well behaved. I'm stunned that a pizza's sitting right above her head and she hasn't tried to grab it. But I'm expecting this will last about another 30 minutes and then she will be all over it.
Has Ripley been fed today?
Ripley has been fed. She's a very spoiled dog, but she doesn't know it.
All right. So why don't we shift gears and start talking about sort of standard updates. And usually the first thing we do is we talk about pickups. I've got a bunch of nonsense to talk about. But first, I think we'll go with Jeremiah because, again, this is sort of like a running gag, and maybe we were talking about merch ideas, and maybe that's sort of a running gag. One of the things that Jeremiah always says at every episode is, "I'm done picking up stuff. My collection is complete. I'm not getting anything else." And then what does he do? Is he sends a photo to us the other day of something he picked up, and it's not what he's holding in his hand. But Jeremiah, why don't you tell us about your latest pickups?
Well, my latest arcade pickup was the guy we had on our last episode, Cameron. He texted me and said that there was a chop lifter for $200, kind of near where I am, about an hour and a half for me. And I happened to be working much closer to that on a friend's dryer that day. So I went up and picked up a completely dead chop lifter for Cameron for $200. But the funny part was that I just took the picture of that sitting in the back of my trademark blue truck that everyone knows me for. And I just sent that with no context to everyone. And without failure, everyone who responded said, "And you've fallen off the wagon again." So, but thankfully I did not. I guess I kind of did with this one, but no, I don't have any new full-on arcade pickups. The closest thing is that I was at the flea market selling a bunch of gumball machines, and then I saw this one for $20. So this is an old what does it say, Northwestern Northwestern gumball machine. I imagine this is probably from the 60s. I got that for $20 at the flea market, and that's the only coin op I bought for myself since the last episode. So maybe I broke the rule, but I don't think this counts.
Well, and the chop lifter, what kind of cabinet was it in, did you say?
Oh, yes. So that was in a cabinet that everyone pointed out it was probably a joust just by the shape, but it had like this wood grain vinyl on the side of it. And so when I got it home, I noticed that the wood grain vinyl had started peeling a bit. So I thought, well, let me see if this side art is joust. And I began to peel it, and I saw this like perfect brown. I thought, oh, they must have just painted over it so that I have something consistent to put this vinyl on. But the more I peeled it, there is like flawless joust side art on this thing that's been protected by this vinyl all these years. And even though I have no interest in a joust cabinet, it's quite nice to see that Cameron's going to be getting this like pristine joust for only $200.
And I think joust was on his list of games he was looking for, wasn't it?
I'm not sure. I don't remember his list, but if it was, he certainly got a good one.
Very cool. Kay, how about you? Anything interesting you pick up at the shop lately?
So I haven't picked up anything recently for the pile, I guess you can call it. Nothing that I own, but everything I've gotten lately has just been more repairs to add to the queue. Just today, I picked up a Superman and a converted wide body Mario Brothers. And one thing I've noticed quite a few times in any Nintendo cabinet that's been converted, half the time they will take the original bezel and they'll just flip it to the other side because the other side is black. But you can still kind of see the graphics on the other side, and it's not perfectly square. You can still see like little pieces sticking out, so you can see Mario's nose in the bottom right corner and things like that. So that's a project to work on. Someone dropped off a Matahari. Someone dropped off a Star Trek pin. Someone dropped off a Star Wars pin. There's just, I keep telling people to stop bringing me stuff because I'm 6 to 8 months backlogged on repairs, but people keep bringing me stuff regardless. I did a delivery today and I saw the laziest conversion I've ever seen. It was a Mortal Kombat or an Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 and a Mortal Kombat 2 cabinet. And they had left the side art, but in order to convey that it was no longer a Mortal Kombat 2, right on the very top where the logo says MK2, they took some black spray paint and they went and just covered up the 2. So it just says MK. So now it's a nice generic Mortal Kombat.
Well, if they wanted to, they turn it to Mortal Kombat 3.
Mm-hmm. They could have just drawn another
Roman numeral. Yeah,
yeah. They didn't think of that.
I respect him for not removing the MK2 side art. It's objectively the best side art in the Mortal Kombat series, I feel like.
It had Mortal Kombat 2 side arts, a Mortal Kombat 3 bezel, and an Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 marquee. So I guess they just upgraded it to the next version every time a new one came out. But when Mortal Kombat 4 came out, they decided it was terrible and they didn't keep going.
Hey, if it works, right? Liam, how about you? Any pickups? I'm trying to think if you've talked about anything recently.
Only one game pickup. I've got some parts finally, enough to rebuild that lunar lander panel that I've got, and I ordered a Smash TV repro panel, so that'll be coming in. But the only game pickup this month is a few days ago. I picked up a Space Invader, not a Space Invaders, an Asteroids cocktail in pretty good condition, complete for $25. So
that's good.
Pretty good about that.
And you got it working already, right?
Yeah, it took me, I don't know, less than an hour. I just plugged in the cat box to it, and it told me which RAM was bad. So I went and looked around at traces and found, I think it was 3 bad traces, and I fixed those, and the thing came to life. There's only one lingering issue with it, and that's audio. It has some bad audio, but that's the 4016 chip in it. I'm just going to replace that, and it should be golden. And my plan for that cocktail is to use it as a test platform for fixing my upright asteroids, because it's so much cheaper in this case than getting a bunch of Variacs and building a bench test rig, when the asteroids cocktail PCB tray just sort of falls down and I can put the oscilloscope on the tabletop.
So another option is steal the asteroids board out of the one you just got, put that in your upright, put the broken asteroids PCB into the cocktail, and sell it on to the next person for the same or more than what you just bought for.
Yeah, that's an option, but I don't know. My wife loves cocktails. She likes sitting down playing games, and she hates asteroids. So maybe this is the way to get asteroids played.
Well, and you've got that perfect setup. Literally, for people that don't know, if it's their first time, Liam and Sam have a dedicated cocktail room for their cocktail arcade machines.
Yeah, because we just like them. It's so nice to sit down and drink tea and or if you are enjoying of a more hard beverage, that's available too. But we do have our arcade divided into 3 rooms, and now we're at 4 cocktails in the small room that just contains the cocktails and the bar itself.
I think that's a much better way to put it. I think I'm going to call it a dedicated cocktail room as opposed to the room where I just get drunk and cry.
If you put a cocktail arcade machine in there, right, you have
It's a
plausible
cocktail
deniability.
lounge.
There you go. Encore, thanks for joining. Frog Puppet, what's up? Frog Puppet, one of our Overtime Arcade channel members. So let's see. Oh, Kay, do me a favor. How many dogs do you have again? Hold your hand up. That's how many games I've picked up since the last episode. And I was only planning on 2. So let's see. The ones that people already know about. First one was Carnival. I've already released a video on that. Carnival was great. I got it with the monitor dead. We'll talk about that sort of in the monitor section. But Carnival's in great shape. So that's a fun Sega Gremlin game, I think from 1980. A little bit like Space Invaders or Galaxian, except it's like a state fair shooting gallery instead of a space theme. Very, very fun. Dilweed, thanks for joining. Let's see. So Carnival was great. Another game I picked up, I think I mentioned it was coming in the last episode. It was a first game I've ever won at auction. I'll talk about that in an upcoming episode. That's kind of interesting. It's not a particularly great game. I believe, however, it is considered to be the best game in the worst series of all time. And it's rare in that they only made maybe a couple of hundred dedicated cabinets. It was much more common to see this as a conversion. So that'll be in an upcoming episode on my channel. And then 2 games that I picked up last weekend. I was traveling, visiting my parents, and on the way back, on the drive home, I always like to check Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and whatever. And what did I find? But 2 games for free. There were some folks moving out of Groton, Connecticut. I don't know if they were getting, transferred in the Navy or something like that. But I got a Sly Spy for free, a Data East game in a dedicated cabinet. Again, relatively unusual. I bought that. It was allegedly working. Got it home, plugged it in, working just great. And I got a Ms. Pac-Man in a Leland quarterback cabinet, which is a 25-inch vertical monitor. And I couldn't believe it when I opened it up. It actually has a legit Bally Midway Ms. Pac-Man board set in there. It's not a bootleg. I was sure there was going to be a bootleg board in there. But so that was really cool. So that's 4. And then today was a fun day. So yesterday I had all 4 kids to myself. This morning got up really early and took 2 of my kids to Monster Jam. So that's why I was doing that Sunday thing to promote the podcast episode yesterday. So we went up to see Monster Jam, Grave Digger and Earthshaker and Megalodon and all that stuff. We got there early and got to come up, and see how big the tires were towering over, my kids. And it was great. And I'm sitting there, during intermission, scrolling through Facebook Marketplace, especially again, because I'm, it was up in, maybe 3.5 hours away up in Pennsylvania. And I saw, and Liam and I have been talking about this. I saw this cabinet that had been sitting for a few weeks. It had caught my eye a couple of times. And, it had been there for a while. So I figured I'd, reach out to the seller. And I guess he's had a bunch of, nibbles and tire kickers and that sort of thing. But we went back and forth a little bit, made him an offer. He accepted. It was great deal. So on the way home, grabbed it. It's a cocktail, so fits in with Liam's cocktail theme. And I was actually chatting with Dillweed on Discord about this too. So, and he was like, "Guess." I sent him a picture. It's got my pickup truck with the cocktail covered in a tarp in the back, and he's trying to guess like, "Oh, is that Japanese cocktail? Maybe Taito?" But no, it is an American cocktail. It's an American cabinet. But a Japanese PCB, and then again converted to another Japanese PCB in there. So That'll be a forthcoming episode on the channel. And the game that's in there is actually kind of fun, what it's been converted to. So I've got to decide, do I leave it sort of as is, or, do I convert it back to the game that it originally was, which was on my want list? Or do I kind of, hedge my bets and kind of leave it as it is for now and then eventually convert it, that sort of thing. But yeah, we are, things are getting out of control, and I'm waiting for Jeremiah to make his, usual gag about your poor wife, or how are you not divorced yet, that sort of thing. Stephen Beatty, thanks for joining. How we doing? Right. TMI. What's that? I don't know. What's does it mean, like TNT? Can you guys hear me? So
I can hear you.
So my headphones cut out. Which is perfect, but I've got a separate microphone. So anyway, yeah. 3 Mile Island. Oh, okay. I think I don't. Is it too soon to make 3 Mile Island jokes? I don't know. It's been a while, right? It's been what, 30, almost 40 years since 3 Mile Island. Anyhow, thank you for joining us, Stephen. So, okay. How about game room updates? Anybody have anything that's moved around? I know, Liam, at this point, you're probably all set up with the move, and you did an updated video tour, right?
It's never done. We're actually having an electrician come in a couple weeks. We are installing several 4-foot black light bars and a whole series of recessed lighting with multicolor with lights in the top. And we also recently, Sam and I had our actual wedding party, and one of the things we did was we brought an Addams Family new old stock Translight with us for the pinball machine, and we had everybody sign it in blacklight reactive ink. So what we're going to do is put together a light box for it with blacklight backing and put that in the arcade as well, which is just, it turned out really, really nice. So that's the next little lighting project we're doing.
With all those things hooked up with all the home automation and everything, right?
Oh yeah, no, I actually went and bought smart light switches, the kind that you put in the wall. So we're going to be able to control the black lights and the incandescent lights and the RGB lights all independently. So you can alter the mood. The ideal behind that is so that when I do need to work on something in there, or when Sam needs to work on something in there, we can just have bright white light to help out instead of our current solution, which is floodlights on tripods.
So I've got a similar thing here. So I can turn on, just on my phone, my kids know that it as office mode and arcade mode. So this is office mode, and then this switches it to arcade mode. But I am a rank amateur when it comes to this sort of thing compared to you, Liam. And I know one of the common questions that lots of us get, and anybody who's like a YouTube content creator will often get is, hey, how do you power these things? How do you control them? Are they on, surge protectors, or, do you turn them all on individually? And Liam and Sam released a awesome video about a month ago, maybe, sort of showing all the smart plugs and home automation and how you control all of that.
It was mostly just a sort of a demo on how we keep things safe from getting turned on and left on, that kind of thing. When you turn on a game in our arcade, it sets a timer automatically, and if you're not showing that you're still using it, it'll shut itself off to prevent something from getting left on overnight. Because that happened to us at one point. I left on Tron, and I was upset at myself, so I implemented that.
Oh, and we'll talk a little bit later about leaving games on and the bad things that can happen if you leave them on for days at a time unattended. Anybody else got game room updates, Jeremiah or Kay?
There's the Cyclone pinball I bought for myself 3 months ago that I still haven't even started on. So, there's that.
Nice. Isn't that did we make that joke before about how, when the husband is a plumber or, some kind of contractor, right? The wife complains because the stuff at home always gets fixed last. there similar sort of thing going
Mechanics
on there?
drive the worst cars, and pinball technicians don't fix their own pins.
There we go. How about you, Jeremiah?
I've been working on the claw machine I got from you the other week. Just today, if you remember when you got it, it had like some little wood strips in there. Those were the cleats for the doors. They had pushed the doors in to break into the machine to work on it or whatever. So I just got those wood glued back on today. The last thing I need are some acorn nuts to go on the pivot for the boom. And they don't sell that specific size at Lowe's, go figure. So it's 2 pieces away, 2 5-cent pieces away from being completely done. And then that's pretty much it for the game room update. And hopefully, I know everybody's laughing at me as I say this, hopefully that'll be the last game room update ever.
Not true. We
Until
know
next
what's
month.
on your list. We know what's on your list. If anybody has a
What's on my
nice
list?
mappy, if anybody has a
Where are
nice
you gonna put
mapping
'em?
project,
You see anywhere a map can go?
Directly
you
behind you, I see floor space. You know, there's
see
enough
shelves,
space that
I
you can
see
move around.
couches.
There's a couch. There's
We call this a walkway in my country.
no, you don't need those. You can
You
walk
can- you
around things. You can squeeze between them.
you can put cabinets back to back and run them off of a wall. You don't have to
Yeah,
have the
make an
games
island.
just on the wall. Make an island. Make a row, right?
Take that cocktail crane game and put it in front of your couch so you can play it on your couch.
You guys are a bad
Now it's a
influence.
coffee
I'm gonna
table.
quit.
Done.
That's what
I'm
we
gonna
did with
quit.
our cocktails in the previous house. We had them in front of the couch in the living room.
This isn't rehab, right? We're not trying to help you get
This
off
is
of.
the opposite of rehab.
We can
This is
enable
an
you
enablement.
as much as we want.
Yeah, precisely.
So it's funny. So for me, let's see. I moved asteroids a little bit over to the right to make it easier for me to play Robotron and not have my rear end bump up against asteroids. Armor Attacks Marquee Light is out again, even though I had already fixed it. So replacing the starter did it last time, so I'll try the bulb.
Disgraceful.
Oh, I know. Tempest's marquee keeps flickering, but it's behaving right now. We'll talk about the Play Choice 10 monitor when we really get into the monitor section. But the really exciting thing for me, I don't know if anyone cares, is I'm going to be doing some rearranging. So my lovely, supportive wife has even said, hey, how about you put some games over here in another room of the basement? So she had done this before with the kids have a playroom down here, and I moved Centipede, and that's where I put NBA Jam when it was done, because NBA Jam is so huge, you know, four player dedicated cabinet. And I've got some games in the garage that are ready to come down. So I think what I'm going to do, there's a little sort of spot over, which I actually can take up quite a bit of room. I'm going to pull some stuff into the garage from there. But the first 2 things that are going to leave this room are the pinball machines, because they take up so much room. And I think they are stressing, they are probably the hungriest things in terms of power consumption in this room, this little 15 amp circuit. So those are going to go over there. Eventually the Play Choice is going to go over there. I'm going to be able to get 4 or 5 more games into this room against this wall, which will be nice. And I forget who started the thread on Clav, but somebody was asking for some advice on how to set up their basement. They were having their basement finished, and they were like playing in what's it called, Sketchfab or something like that, where you can like lay out stuff. Is that what it's called, Liam?
I use Sweet Home 3D for that.
But it's Sketchfab, the name of a different one.
SketchUp, I believe.
SketchUp, yeah, something like that. So they were, you know, everyone was kind of playing like, you know, it's like musical chairs, you know. And he also had the issue where he's got uprights, he's got a corner desk he needs to have. There's a closet and a door that eat up some of the wall. And he's also got a skee ball, or is getting a skee ball, so having to sort of sort all that out. And he was also worried about, you know, if the skee ball is right next to games and, you know, some kid throws a skee ball errantly, it could take out a monitor. So they were looking at different solutions on how to set that up.
Valid concern.
Yeah, and like you can do netting. There's different things you can do, right? But the one of the layouts that I was really inspired by had the skee ball in a corner, and like the right side of the skee ball was all the way up against the wall, and along the left side of the skee ball was upright games. And basically, so that was going to solve the problem of if you threw the ball errantly, it would either hit a wall or hit the backs of cabinets, right? Hit the backs of cabinets. but that also solves a problem that I was going to have down here. Eventually I was going to put some games over in that corner where the pinballs are going to go now. It's like this, like almost like it's below a bay window. So there's like almost like a bump out kind of, octagonal pentagon sort of, angles down there. So I'm going to have, so like all the angles are going to be all messed up. So what I'm going to do is have one pinball lined up against the wall and then uprights along the back of it, right? So that'll be kind of neat. And it'll almost have a little effect like for anyone that's been to Jeff Kinder's basement collection or saw Dell's video of it, he's got this sort of little like hidden area where the Tron is. And so it'll have almost a little effect like that. And a super extra bonus with this, it'll leave a perfect spot for a sit-down Spy Hunter cabinet, which is on my wish list. I wouldn't necessarily call it a holy grail, but that's, that and Bubbles are probably top of my list for games I would love to have. Dillweed says he remembers that thread. Frog Puppet says, yeah, cocktail coffee table. Yeah, I'm up to now 4 cocktails in my possession. Only really one set up. And I think the Donkey Kong Jr. is probably going to go to my office at work. So we'll have to set one up like that. Russell says he's got too many cocktails for them all to be feasible. Mega Race, which is cool. Tank, which we had talked about. And Challenge, which I think he just picked up. That is I think Challenge is like a Quadrupong clone. Darren, jealous of our basements. And Darren, I think you're in Louisiana, right? So basement is basically would just get washed out the next time things flood. Dilwy's right. Got to keep that stuff away. Those things become projectiles to smash anything, everything else. So cool. So that's great. How about projects you're currently working on? Kay, what's the cool stuff you got going on in your workshop right now?
I am in the middle of a Phoenix right now. Dedicated cabinets. I got it working and mostly playable if I would just clean the leaf switches. But I completely rebuilt the monitor and it looks pretty good. And all that's left is cosmetics, which is going to be tomorrow's project. I got a couple videos about it on TikTok. I did part 1 and 2, and part 3 should be tomorrow. And hopefully that'll be the end of it. After that, I don't know what I'm going to move on to. There's a giant pile. I'll pick something else.
There you go. Liam, how about you? What's the latest thing to break that needs to be fixed?
Well, I've noticed that Tempest is being a little temperamental. Not super bad. Just the blue gun seems a little weak on the monitor, so I need to look into that. I finally have ordered all the rest of the parts necessary for Smash TV, so I'm excited for that.
Oh yeah, I saw you just ordered the control panel.
Yeah, I need to do the art. I haven't ordered the art yet, but I ordered all the joysticks. I need to get some softer grommets because the Wiko grommets are terrible. But that has been ordered. I ordered 5 Atari lit start buttons for that lunar lander panel. Let me tell you, those things are a chunk of change.
Mm.
But
for the grommets for Smash TV, does it use the same kind as Robotron?
Yes.
Can you get the ones from Andrew B that he makes?
Exactly my plan.
Okay, cool.
So those are the 2 big projects that are sitting in there right now. We do have that millipede. I ordered trackball rebuild kits for it. So I'm hoping that we can start putting that together. And I've got some parts to repair another 13-inch monitor to throw in it. My only question mark on that right now is the brackets. And you're going to be facing that same question soon with your Dig Dug of how to flip the monitor back around in there.
Well, it's funny. The we were talking offline about getting some angle iron and just reproducing, or just fabricating like brackets, right? Cutting them to, finding ones that are relatively the right size, like us, of the actual bend in the middle, cutting them to size, drilling holes where they need to be, and maybe clear coating it or something and calling it done. I was in Ace Hardware, which my 4-year-old was convinced is my favorite place in the world, and I was just standing there in front of the angle iron, and I'm like, because I needed a bracket, a marquee, upper marquee bracket for upper or lower for Pango, and I was like, where the heck am I going to find that? But I found a piece of aluminum, angle aluminum at Ace Hardware that I'm just going to turn that into it, right? Same thing for the dynamo that's got the Superman side art. I'll do that. And I figure, and I kind of am like asking myself, why isn't that more of a common thing, I guess, right? Because I often see people, posting on Clav or on Facebook or whatever saying, hey, I'm looking for this specific metal part, that now I'm thinking like that should be relatively easy to go to, Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, whatever, and find something that's kind of at least close to it. But I guess you kind of have to know what it looks like in order to find. I don't know if have any of you guys
originality.
Yeah, well, for something like that though, it's just a piece of metal painted black, right? Have any of you guys
I believe they were painted. They were brass.
Oh, the ones inside the monitor, right? But you'll
Yeah.
never see that.
A lot of people, I think most of us here are pretty generally handy. So when we see a problem with an arcade, we kind of think, okay, I can solve this with something I've used on some other thing. Whereas other people in this hobby, this may be the only thing they do that's like that. So they wouldn't think, oh, that's just a piece of whatever angle iron. They're thinking that's this arcade part. But yeah, if you've had experience working on like this week, I fixed like a dryer, and that's hand in hand with the arcade stuff. So if you don't have experience in the sort of general stuff, you're not going to think about that when it comes to the arcades. Well,
and Kay, I'm sure, you do volume wise, more work than all of us combined and then some. So is that just sort of like a, standard thing, going down to Lowe's or whatever and finding the right sort of, close enough piece of angle iron and then, cutting it to suit your needs?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time at Ace Hardware as well. I've got like a lot of bulk wood and like a couple of giant pieces of plexiglass that I got for free that I tend to cut myself for bezels or marquee covers or whatever. And whenever it comes to brackets and things like that, I'm not going to hunt down the exact piece that someone pulled from an original dedicated cabinet that they had to scrap because, it was water damaged or caught fire or whatever. I'm not that particular. I'm typically not doing full restorations or anything like that anyway. So if it needs a back door, I'm going to cut a back door, paint it black, and screw it on the back. If I need a bracket, I'm going to cut a bracket, paint it black, and screw it down. It's good enough to work, and 99% of people aren't going to notice, and those people are my customers, and they don't care.
There you go. There you go.
Like, especially if I'm selling to like a barcade or whatever like that, like they just want it functional.
Yeah. Well, did we miss anybody on that question? I think, projects. Jeremiah, how are those multi-packs going, or the pack of packs?
I really haven't gotten. So I've got the one Pac-Man left. I really haven't since the last show. I've been busy with traveling for work. Then I wrote and performed and recorded, finished a 6-minute instrumental song. That took a while. And then this week I was busy fixing my friend's dryer on all my off time. So I have not had a second to work on that thing since the last show. But last update was that the monitor was working on it on the Pac-Man cocktail. And so now I've just got to go through the PCB and find out why I'm getting garbage on the screen. And that is my last project, hopefully.
Until next show. Yeah.
Until the next one. Yeah. Let's see. It wouldn't surprise me if Cameron just sicks me with this chop lifter and is like, "Hey, how about you fix it?" Just so he can say that he got me to fix another one. So.
Well, now you've put the idea out in the world, and if he's watching it, he will notice.
Can we just let's take this episode down?
So yeah, if you've got a trailer full of games that you need fixed, just drop it off at Jeremiah's place. He'll go through them. You're welcome.
All those Coin Op Corner fans are hungry for content.
Yeah, just crowdsource the content there. Just fuel it.
Well, a trailer full of games would be like 20 years worth of content for my channel. So
you just got to wish it into existence.
Let's see. For me, kind of making progress on Pango. Next thing to do there is rebuild the G07. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I've got all the artwork package I need to apply to the cabinet. And the thing that I'm going to be doing that I think it's actually my first time is there's a bunch of extra holes that have been drilled into the metal control panel that I need to fill, and I'm going to go the JB Weld route. So cross my fingers and see if I can get that done. Zoner69, thanks for joining. How we doing? Let's see. And long awaited, or long delayed, I should say. I don't know where they are. I have stencils.
Great,
for
now
Miss
it's even
Pack.
more delayed.
I know. I have. Where did I even put them though? Oh, they're over there. They're even on camera. That box right there. Those are Miss Pack stencils. So, Phil, if you're watching, thank you. Phil hooked me up. I guess he had gotten them from somebody else who didn't need them, and Phil didn't need them at all. So, yeah, he sold them to me for a great price. And I reached out. I wasn't sure if they were. They looked, really, really high quality, super professional, but I couldn't tell if they were from This Old Game or potentially even from Game Stencils, who used to make these before. But I think they sold their files or transferred their files to This Old Game. But I reached out to, gosh, I can't remember his name. Maybe Brian. He confirmed that those are This Old Game stencils, but he thinks it is his file, so it's his version. So awesome deal. So coming up soon, I'll be sanding all the original, really damaged, destroyed side art off of the Ms. Pack. We'll get that all prepped. We'll put the stencils on. We'll paint the stencils, and at that point, I'll figure. I want to hold on to my This Old Game back order until I'm happy with the applying these stencils, because if I screw them up, then I don't want to lose my spot in that queue for those. But yeah, really excited to get the Ms. Pack finished up. My kids, every time they see it in the garage, they're like, when can we play Ms. Pac-Man? So anybody else got updates on projects or cool stuff they're working on? No? Cool. All right. How about what's coming up? How about what's the next couple of, let's say, episodes on your channel? What can we expect next from Retrobotics, Liam?
Well, the pool table's being assembled this week, so that will be the crown piece of the third arcade room, which was not included in the tour. So once that's put together, we'll be furnishing the rest of that room and trying to combine it with the cocktail lounge. Pardon the dog. It's really hyper.
You're multitasking. You're entertaining literally thousands of loyal Coin Jam podcast fans and entertaining Ripley at the same time.
I just don't want to destroy the rest of the room. But as far as the arcade goes, the next thing, hopefully in the coming month, I'm really hopeful that Smash TV will be put into the arcade. It's all coming down to whether or not I can fix this stupid Quartec KTW monitor with collapse. So far, I've not been able to figure out the issue with it. I've replaced a lot of the things that are in the standard K7000 flowchart, but it's just not coming to life just yet. It's still a hassle. The other thing that we're probably going to do is some sort of asteroids video. Probably a combination of the upright asteroids and the asteroids cocktail that we've now got. Just talking about repairing asteroids and working on it. I've got some footage of me working with the cat box, trying to diagnose these boards and repair them. So it'll be interesting to talk about that.
And you've mentioned that a couple times already, the cat box. For people that don't know what that is, could you illuminate them?
Yeah, the cat box is a FPG recreation of the original Atari cat box, which was a diagnostic tool. It was used to basically take the place of the processor and pinpoint where issues may be coming from in a game PCB. So it has the capabilities of diagnosing the RAM. It can check the ROMs, make sure that they're all good and all accessible. It can, for vector machines, directly actuate the vector generator to draw specific things on the screen without the processor even installed on the board, using itself as the processor. And it can do a similar thing for raster game boards. You can use it to draw sprites and move them around on the screen. which is pretty cool. And the last thing that it has, which the original cat box did not have, is it implements an HP 5004, which is a signature analyzer. So you can go through and do signature analysis on a game board, which will really help you pin down any dead chips, because a lot of these older games have a full signature analysis guide. So you can go through between any trace and know what signature, given a test pattern on the processor, should be producing. So in this case, I used it to just go through and try to identify bad traces. And I'm going to be using it to check the ROMs on my other asteroids board soon.
Go ahead, Kay.
I was just saying, I know what some of those words were.
But so me too. But what it sounds like is I can just take my broken Missile Command board, my broken Dig Dug board, and my broken backup Tempest board. I can take them over to Liam's house now. He can plug it into this magical device, and it'll say, "Oh, replace this chip. Fix this broken trace."
You're more than welcome to. Just bring your rejuvenator with you.
That's right. Yeah, we can do that. And hold on, we have breaking news. Stringer Films with a $2 million donation with the super chat. Stringer Films, thank you so much. You are super, super generous. We all love you. We all know you. We see you all the time everywhere on YouTube live streams and Twitter and everything. Thank you. You are so awesome. And also, what's up to Steven? And Zoner is convinced that my Cinematronics vector beam monitor is going to go kaput any day now. Based on how it's behaving, I trust that one more than the 6100, which I'm going to have to do something with eventually. So yes, again, Stringer Films, thank you so much for the super generous donation. Kay, what do you got cooking? Where are the next couple of videos on TikTok and Facebook going to be all about?
So I'm going to finish the Phoenix. I'm not sure where I'm going to go from there. One of my buddies has asked about a dual versus cabinet that I've got that I know he wants. That as soon as I picked up, I plugged in, saw what it did, put it in the pile, and didn't do anything else with. But one half is versus Super Mario Brothers, and the other side is versus Excite Bike. And it's not a bad looking cabinet. It needs a little cosmetic work. And I'm hoping it's just a power supply thing because both monitors do come on, but they don't have anything to display. So I'm just hoping it's a bad power supply. And I've got working boards and it'll bring everything up. And from there, it's just preventative maintenance and cosmetics. But that's likely one of the next things I'm going to be working on. I'm trying to work backwards physically backwards in my shop to some of the stuff that's buried in the corner because I've got a Frogger, a Robotron 2084, and a Qbert that are back there that I can work on. And those are in fairly high demand compared to most of the stuff I've got sitting around that's easier to get to. So I want to work my way towards those. There's also a 1942 that's back there that someone has specifically mentioned. So I want to get that dug out and worked on as well.
Very cool. Lots of stuff there. And I know the last time we were talking, it was like a last in, first out queue, right? And you're getting low in inventory when you can start to see the wall and the distance behind all the games.
I still have dozens of things to work on. There's no issue about running out of things anytime soon. I also have like 17 slot machines that I picked up for free that I can teach myself to work on as soon as I have the availability to do so, but I don't see myself doing that anytime soon.
There you go. And you can open up the Prime Arcade Casino,
which is illegal as hell in Texas.
Okay, cool. Jeremiah, what are the next couple of episodes of Coin Op Corner 2025, 2026? What are they going to look like?
Well, I hate to disappoint Mr. Zoner 69, but there will be no more cigarette machines to be fixed. That is long gone. It was fun to work on, and it looked pretty cool, though. So the immediate next video is still, Cameron, I'm still working on it. Still the Pac-Man one. That's going to be an interesting episode because it'll be a little bit of the in-depth PCB repair and in-depth monitor repair, both of which I haven't really done on the show yet. I've kind of just done general this and that and everything. So that'll be the immediate next episode. I had a lot of footage that I never used of some gumball machine repair, and now with this other gumball machine I just got, I figured any makeup shots that I need I can get from that. So I'm going to do an episode on gumball machines after that. And then lastly will be the 1930s digger crane there. That'll be a pretty lengthy episode, and that'll be I'm hoping to get all 3 of these out by the end of the year. So that's my next.
We're gonna have to coordinate the last one, because that should be a sort of like a joint episode, because you picked up stuff for me, I picked up that machine for you, and then we met at Creamy Corner, and did that sort of swap in the parking lot, right? So, and we filmed that, so we'll have to that's one way to keep Ripley from distracting things, is just put her in a chokehold. But and let's see, for me, I think the next episode for me is going to be Pango, working on the monitor, I think. And then after that will probably be the control panel. But speaking of monitors, that's probably a great segue into what we really wanted to talk about as the sort of main topic for this episode, which is arcade monitors, right? The CRTs and the people who love them. So I've been working on a lot of monitors lately myself. Let's see, even just going back and looking at let's see, the list of things that I've been doing. So so the what was it, the Carnival monitor, that was dead when I got it. It was a G07. Got that fixed up and working right. And to help remind myself and others about the notorious silkscreen printing error on the G07. So if you don't know this, it's an infamous issue. So C302, capacitor C302 on the G07 is a normal electrolytic polarized capacitor, and on the top of the part side of the chassis PCB, it's printed the correct way with the sort of circle with the the other dot sort of to indicate where the negative lead goes. But then if you flip the chassis over and look at the back, the solder side where you would be applying the solder, it has a plus mark to indicate a positive in the wrong position. And as our fabulous model Jeremiah is showing us, I had some t-shirts made up, because now that I hit 1,000 subs, YouTube allows me to have a shop connected to the channel. And so I made t-shirts up, showing that problem, right? So here is on the front of the t-shirt is the part side indicating, C302 has the negative lead over here. And Jeremiah, can you show us the back again? Turn around, Jeremiah. I'll even pin you to make it so that look at that. So, and we see in the back how C302 has that little positive sign there, that plus sign indicating polarity, which is just totally wrong. So thank you everyone who has bought those t-shirts. They've been flying off the shelves, and I think we are approaching the end of the 15% discount for the launch of the shop there that Spreadshirt allows me to do. So yeah, I was working on that G07 in that Carnival. That was relatively easy to get going. The next one I have coming up is also going to be a G07 in the Pango. And I do like G07s. It's one of my more the monitors that I like the best. But some of the things I don't like about it are the fuses are the pigtail ones that are soldered directly to the board. So whenever you're working on them, you really want to remove those original pigtail, at least I do, remove those original pigtail fuses and replace them with actual fuse holders and new fuses that pop right in. Because one of the other things is, when you have, no picture and you have like no B+, you check the fuses, as Dell from Dell's Arcade reminded me on that Carnival video, you really want to pull those fuses off the board in order to test them. If things go haywire different ways, you can get incorrect. If you try to do like a continuity test on your multimeter, you can get a false reading unless you at least lift one of the legs of those pigtail fuses from the board. Another issue I was having, the video that I just released today, which channel members got to see a day early, actually I think I released it like really late Friday night, is right here, the Play Choice 10. So I have a dual monitor Play Choice 10, so it looks like a punch out where there's an upper monitor and a lower monitor. And I am fortunate enough, I say sarcastically, to have the Sharp XM 2001N monitors in this cabinet. So 2 of those. I think the cabinet also came with Sanyo's like a later version of the 20EZ, but I have the Sharp monitors, and that's the 20-inch version of the Red Tent monitors. Excuse me. The monitors that came in the Nintendo Red Tent, so the Versus cocktail machine, those were 18-inch versions of that monitor. So Sharp XM 1801N, which is actually what I have in my Donkey Kong Jr. cocktail, and I've got a spare one hiding under the Munsters pinball. So the journey I've had with that has been pretty crazy. I've done a series of episodes, going back to something Liam said earlier about leaving games on too long, and bad things can happen. So I used to have my games on voice command, digital virtual assistant stuff, and my headphones just disconnected, but I think you can still hear me. I had because of that, accidentally left the games on for at least 48 hours, and I had no idea we were away, whatever. Come back and notice that the thing was on, and like, that doesn't make any sense. I just got home, and the upper monitor was glitching out. So turned it off, let everything cool down, settle for like an hour or so, turn it back on, immediately heard a pop, smelled really bad, burning plastic smell, and turned off the whole thing. And I assumed that the flyback was blown. Sure enough, it was. So I bought a replacement, and that flyback, when I had originally gotten the monitor, I replaced it. So the OEM monitor had already been replaced with a reproduction flyback, and that reproduction eventually failed. And then I put a new reproduction into it. But the batch of reproduction flybacks for these monitors last year were flawed from the factory in China, so that I had a thick black bar on the right-hand side of the image that just made it look terrible. And a bunch of people were experiencing the same thing, and people were trying to come up with like chassis modifications to fix that, to no avail. But in the background, working behind the scenes, Peter from arcadepartsandrepair.com, who I bought parts to fix all of these machines, he had been working on a new set of reproduction flybacks, and those had earlier this month just come into stock on his shop. So I immediately bought them. And so the episode I released today was about putting the new set of reproduction, or reproduction flyback from the new batch into this monitor. And it kind of worked, right? So the first time I turned it on, black bar was gone. And then I turned it back on the next day, and the black bar was back with the new flyback. It looks a little bit different, but it was there. And it's like every other time that I turn it on, and I change nothing changes. I have it off right now. I could turn it on right now, and I don't want to, because the attract mode sounds are way too loud, and it's right in my ear. So I have no idea. If anyone has any ideas out there on what that could be, I'm literally doing nothing. I'm changing nothing. I don't think there's any externalities that are changing. Maybe it's like the air conditioner unit is on. I don't even know, right? Trying to figure out why sometimes I get a black bar and why sometimes I don't. But that's a struggle that I've been having lately with these strange. Darren is saying something loose or shorting. I don't think so. I've been in and out of that thing multiple times. I've taken it out. Right, I did that capacitor mod that Mike from Mike's Amateur Arcade Monitor Repair suggested. Put that in, took it out. TPG, Nintendo boards, right? Like, and it's just sometimes it comes on with the black bar, and sometimes it doesn't. So I really don't know. But any of you ever had monitor issues like that, where it's just sort of kicking you in the butt, or some little thing where it's like it's almost completely perfectly working, but there's some weird like a curl or some other issue like that?
Yeah,
you were
sure.
saying that the black bar is on the right hand side of the screen?
It's on the right hand side, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you just turn down the horizontal size a little bit, and just leave that side blank, and you're good. I've
thought about that, because that's just the channel select menu too for the play choice.
Yeah, I've got another one like that too, a 4900 that I've been working on. That's the Joust monitor, and it has a curl on the right side of the horizontal screen. What I understand about 4900 curls, usually there's a curl at the top, but there's not a lot of literature regarding a curl that's on the right, and I've not really been sure what to do about it. I've recapped it, I replaced the flyback, I've been going through it, and I could never figure out anything that was affecting that curl on the right side, so I just sort of increased it so the curl's just like right at the edge, and left it at that for the moment.
There's probably one resistor that's like half an ohm off out of spec.
Yeah, I don't really care to go and find it. It works well enough right now. My big problem is that stupid Cortex chassis on Smash TV that I've not been able to figure out. It's been like a month of me every now and then trying it and nothing changing.
Who else? Who else has had pernicious issues with monitors?
I've got some funny monitor stories. So I've mentioned before that my first game was the lower half of a House of the Dead arcade machine. The original owner had taken the top half monitor housing off and used it for target practice. So House of the Dead is a medium res game. And so in my arcade restoration infancy, I saw a U5000 and I said, oh, that's medium res. And I bought it. And it worked for like a day. And being that was my first game, that chassis ended up going to Arcade Buffet. And no joke, even Arcade Buffet, who is known to be able to just dissect this stuff and knock it out pretty well, it took him over a year to fix it. And it ended up being some random resistor that was causing everything else to short out. And meanwhile, while he's fixing this, I bought the Super Pac-Man, which was my first working game I ever bought. And a week after getting that, the G07 gets what would that be? Vertical or horizontal collapse? No, that'd be vertical collapse because it's flipped around. It gets that, and multiple weeks of not knowing how to fix that, replacing everything. Ended up just buying another G07 chassis from him. But now, after having a couple of years of working through these things, I've gotten pretty adept at troubleshooting PCBs in general. And now I've got so many working G07s that my method of fixing those is typically to yank a working one out of a game and whatever specific circuit I'm having the problem in, be it the vertical deflection or otherwise, I'll compare the problematic board to the working board. And that'll help me narrow down like what direction is this short going in or what specific component has the problem.
I
You
don't
are
hear
muted.
you.
I'm really sorry. I'm really my brain is just fried today. I'm really curious to hear from Kay again because of the volume of machines that you go through. Have you seen like patterns between like, hey, this model of monitor almost never has problems versus this one everybody thinks is really really good, but you've seen nothing but issues with them? Any sort of patterns like that?
I definitely have my preferences. Since I work mostly on 80s and 90s stuff, the ones I come across the most would be the G07, the 4900, and the 7000. The K7000 and the K4900. I see those more often than I see anything else, and I like those because those are so commonly found and have been worked on so many times. I've worked on them dozens, if not hundreds of times. And there's so much documentation out there for every single specific issue that any of those could ever face. Someone else out there has had the exact same problem and can tell you, oh, it's this diode right here, check this. And so there's so much documentation for those. It's the lesser known ones that are a little bit harder because some of them don't even have flow charts. Some of them you have a hard time even just finding the manual for. And while those are some of the most common and the ones I like working on the most, I don't think they have the best pictures. I think the best looking monitors out there are the Sanyo 20EZ, so the Nintendo monitors. I think those produce a great image as long as they're pre-built and everything's adjusted as it should be. But another one that a lot of people don't like is the K4600, and a lot of people don't like it because of those little daughter cards like the XY card and that are on the chassis that have a tendency to come loose a little bit and cause all kinds of issues. If you have a K4600 monitor and you take the time to properly, reflow all the solder joints and recap it, and just have it working like it should, it produces one of the most beautiful images of any of those older like 80s monitors. I think it's the best looking one of the bunch. The only real downside to that chassis is that it's such a pain to remove it from the cabinet to the point where there's several wires that are soldered on that you would have to individually undo and redo afterwards, so that whenever I recap a 4600, I actually don't even remove it all the way from the cabinet. I undo the chassis from how it's like bolted in, and then I sit it on a stool and I just do the recap right there while it's still mostly connected to the cabinet, just because that's easier than actually removing everything and getting it all the way to the bench. And the cap kit is on the deflection board itself is relatively small. Half the caps you're doing are on the daughter cards, so you can just take those to the bench. But reflowing all those solder joints and everything and doing the cap kit on the deflection board itself only takes maybe a half hour, if that. So it takes me less time to do it right there where it's still in the cabinet than it is to actually remove it. But it gets a lot of flack because a lot of people don't like that monitor just because of the reliability issues they have. But I believe that those monitors haven't been properly gone through. If they have, they seem to be just as reliable as any other. As long as you've got that little plastic piece that holds those daughter cards in place and still, there's no reason why they should shake loose. So I like K4600s more than I think a lot of people do.
I thought you were supposed to test CRTs the way you test light bulbs. You pick them up, hold them up to your ear, and shake them, right? And see if you hear anything loose inside.
Well, you shake the entire cabinet. That way, you don't have to pull just the chassis out or just the monitor. You shake the entire thing. You're also testing the cabinet too, so that's just efficiency.
Yeah, Coin Out Corner recommended means of testing right there.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the 27-inch models, right?
Yeah, anything that's really top heavy, you should definitely just shake.
Hold it over your head.
Yeah, just gorilla press it and do a few squats and see if you can feel anything shake loose.
Get your friends to help you, your kids, your wife, anyone.
We got Overtime Arcade channel member Jerry Voluptuous joining in the live chat, which is awesome. Russell says the Motorola M5000 has given him lots of grief. Is that that's a black and white? Is that the same?
Yeah, that's the one that's I think in like Space Invaders, like Deluxe.
Yeah, that's Space Invaders Deluxe. That's the one that I need rejuvenated because, surprise, surprise, this gave me a lot of grief. This actually does remind me of something regarding that specific monitor being annoying to repair. There's a CAN capacitor on that monitor, on that chassis. And
I hear Ripley.
Well, I had to put her in her crate. She was going a little crazy, and she's not happy about it. So this is the only time you'll hear her actually howl. Anyway, the arcade shop sells a replacement for this CAN capacitor, but it's spec'd for multiple monitors. However, while it says it's compatible with the M5000, two of the capacitors on it are swapped location-wise. And I only found out about that after I installed it in my M5000 chassis, and everything was all screwed up. So I ended up having to take it apart and replace some capacitors on the actual replacement PCB before it started working.
So the only black and white raster monitor I have is the XM501. What is there a huge difference between that one and the M5000?
I'm not sure. I've only had experience with the M5000, of which I've had 3 of them.
I know they have different cap kits.
Yeah,
I don't know if the 501 has the CAN cap, the big one, like the multi-cap thing.
Yeah.
I'll probably find out before too long because I have several black and white games that are waiting for me to get to. I've got a couple of tanks and
there you go.
an Atari baseball, a Clean Sweep, which is basically Pong.
Clean Sweep. That's a game that Dillweed has, who was in the and his channel is the Dillest Weed. I know he has a Clean Sweep.
It's also the name of a very popular claw machine.
I got a few of those too.
Russell says there's lots of differences between the M5000 and XM501. Good to know. Jumping General asks, are the BezTech 25-inch monitors difficult? I have not encountered one of those myself yet. In one of my unannounced projects, let's see, I got too many spreadsheets here. I have a BezTech 19-inch monitor awaiting me. But have any of you guys worked on a BezTech, particularly a 25-inch BezTech?
Yeah, the only BezTechs I've seen are 19-inch ones, and I pulled those from some of the 8-liners that I converted into 16-ones, and I'm pretty sure they weren't working, and so I just set them aside into my monitor graveyard to be worked on later. So I'm sure that'll be a headache for future me, but present me hasn't dealt with them. They just pulled it out and set it to the side.
I have not heard great things about BezTech, so I'm not sure I'm necessarily eager to dive into repairing one. Any other horror stories from the rest of you about just really, really pernicious monitors?
I don't know if it's a horror story. It's more just me being dumb. But there was one Hantarex monitor I was working on. I don't remember what model it was. It wasn't the Polo. I think it was like a MTC 9000 or something like that. But looking through the flow chart, the issue that I was having, it said, hey, if you're having this issue, there's this very large ceramic resistor that if it's getting really hot, this is your issue. You need to fix this, this, and this. And so my method of testing if that resistor was hot was to just take my hand and clamp it directly onto that resistor. And as it turned out, yes, it was very hot. So maybe next time don't put your fingers like directly onto it. Just like kind of put your hand over it and see if you can feel the heat as opposed to, making your skin part of the resistor.
Speaking of hot resistors, did I don't know if this was a trolling post or what, but did you guys see the picture on that was going around on Facebook, I think in the arcade monitor repair group, of this guy who's like, hey, I think I'm working on this monitor. It powers up. I've got no image. Is this resistor supposed to be glowing like this? Did you guys see that picture?
I didn't see that, but I have
No.
seen glowing resistors. I went to basically a junk store once because the guy had a golden tee there that he was trying to sell, and he was saying that it was having monitor issues. And so I came by to take a look at it, and as soon as I took the back door off, it was I want to say like a K7400 or something like that, 25-inch medium res monitor. I take a look at the deflection board, and I can see a resistor glowing bright red. And I'm like, we should probably shut this thing off now. And as it turned out, the yoke wasn't plugged in at all. So that's what was causing that to happen. So I plugged the yoke in. And it's you basically still just got a dot. It had a vertical and horizontal collapse at the same time. I was like, I think that's your problem right there. So I think that's the first time I've ever seen, like, in action, a glowing resistor that didn't immediately just burn out or short out or blow open. It just glowed for an extended period of time. And he had showed this machine to so many people over a long period of time. This thing had been turned on and glowing for months. So I don't know who made that resistor, but they made it pretty well because it did not give up.
Yeah, you're supposed to have net glow on a monitor, not resistor glow.
You've heard of light emitting diodes, right? What's wrong with light emitting?
It's like the light bulb test.
The net glow is basically resistor glow. When you think about it, it's just a heating element, which is a resistor.
Yeah. We got a bunch of new folks joining us in the live chat. Wayne, what's up? Super Sprint, hey now. Our Sprint Star, excuse me. I was thinking about Super Sprint earlier today. And Dominic, yo. Encore says red orange is the operating color on those. I'm not sure if that's true. And Russell's looking for a flyback on an XM 501 if anyone has one of those.
I do not have that, but I do have another monitor story. When you're good.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I have the mother of all testy monitors. I've talked about it in some of the videos I've done with Sam, and that is our Firefox monitor, the Amplifone Raster, which is the largest pain in the butt.
Notoriously
monitor. Notoriously reliable. Well, if you're defining reliable as in explosion rate, if you're classed it as an IED, then yes, it is extremely reliable, which is why so few Firefoxes manage to survive. Because for those who are not aware, the flybacks on those things, which have the nickname Red Dead, were notorious for catching on fire and or exploding, which was not exactly a great design feature on the part of Amplifone / Atari. So we had to work on that a little bit, and we did end up fixing it, but it was a struggle, and we currently have a K7000 flyback sort of drilled through some proto board and onto the PCB with a lot of wires going from the flyback to the PCB to get it to actually work.
And there's been some other discussion about that sort of thing, right? So Liam, what you're describing is, basically a flyback that's not designed for a specific chassis, basically hacked into that chassis, right? It's, it's not actually installed into the flyback,
No, not at all.
through holes. It's above it, and then it's like almost like breadboarded to the different,
Exactly.
right? There's been other discussions, and I'm not familiar if anything's really happened yet on Clav and elsewhere, of doing a similar thing for other chassis that have, flybacks that are just, unobtainium or not reproduced, and kind of finding a flyback that's the closest match for one that exists, and then figuring out, what modifications have to be done to, force that in there. And I think as, we go farther and farther away from the last CRT ever produced in a factory, there'll be more and more of these kind of jerry-rigged sort of setups like that to keep them alive.
Yeah, and some monitors do get repro flybacks made. It's a thing that happens, but for something like the amp raster, probably less than 100 or so of those are probably still kicking around. It's just not worth getting them made because there are just not enough people to buy them. When you look at, they are only used in Firefox, TX3, and iRobot, and like 5 Crystal Castles machines. If you look at it on VATS, there are like 30 people who have a Firefox, even less that have a TX3. Note, we went to FunSpot a week ago, and there was a TX3 there. It was dead. The monitors were out. I wonder why.
Well, they have this amazing new technology where you can get this converter board, right? And then you can put a flat screen in there instead, and then, hey, problem solved, right?
Yeah, no.
Well, we'll talk about that in a hot minute. Then we'll leave that controversial discussion for the end of the episode. A moment ago, Wayne was talking about he's been fighting with a Macvision 2527 for a couple of years. Wow. Had a great picture on it, and the next day it was dead. He said that Macvision is fired now. Kay, how much experience do you have with Macvisions?
I've got one sitting on the floor of the shop right now that needs a flyback. I'll probably never find it. That's about it. I've had Macvisions in some of the games that I've worked on, and for the most part, like, they're good looking monitors whenever they work, but from my experience, they didn't have the best quality caps installed at the factory, and so a cap kit is pretty much mandatory if you're working on one. But the flybacks are for certain models, especially the model that I've got sitting around, no one sells. So
yeah, well, and Peter, again, from Arcade Parts and Repair, had a thread going on Clav recently where he was like, hey, what flybacks out there aren't being reproduced, because I think he's feeling like the factories that he works with in China are starting to evaporate, and probably getting out of the business of reproducing these things. And I think he wants to make a final push to get inventory and stock for as many things as possible, because the last CRT was manufactured like 15 years ago or something like that, and pretty soon these factories in China are going to stop wanting to do such low production number runs on these things. And again, in the chat, Sprint Star was saying make a PCB flyback adapter board for the odd pinout. It usually is a little bit more than the pinout, right? So sometimes it's just that, and other times it could be different voltages or whatever. But again, there could be some sort of setup that some modification to adapt that. And again, Overtime Arcade channel member Frog Puppet says, we need a billionaire in this hobby to fund new CRTs. I've made that joke before. I've said, if and when, hopefully when I win Powerball, one of the things I would like to do with, just, oodles of disposable income is like throw $10 million out of my billion at, standing up a CRT factory, right? And having something crank out 19-inch, CRT monitors with a bunch of different inputs, right? And just getting something like that going again. I would imagine it would also, not just be us, degenerate arcade video game collectors, but also like the retro, console gaming community, really likes playing a lot of those games on CRTs, and maybe they would buy, it wouldn't have to be like a TV with like a tuner or anything, but a, composite input, S video input, whatever, RGB input, CRT, monitor setup. So that's in my good ideas list for when I become a billionaire. Yeah, everyone's just buying major Havocs. Yeah, anything else on monitors you like working on, or issues you've had, or how about the sort of like common fixes, right? Like, what are the things that that just keep coming up over and over again that almost become, oh, I just assume that I'm going to have to do this every time I'm working on something, right? Like one of the, and this could be, there's a debate whether it's the an old wives' tale or not, but everyone, a lot of people say that whenever you install a cap kit on a G07, if it has the original OEM Grey Cup flyback, rip that thing out, throw it away, because those new caps are going to overwork it, and you're going to, you risk blowing the flyback anyway. And G07 Repro flybacks are relatively inexpensive and readily available, and especially if this is something that's going to go into get a lot of use, whether it's on location or something, just replace the flyback now. Are there things like that you guys have run into, or those sorts of things that you just sort of like you take for granted that you're going to have to do on a particular monitor?
Yeah, on G07s and K7000s, if it has the original flyback in it and I install a cap kit, I usually replace the flyback too, just because I haven't had a lot of issues with bad batches of those repro flybacks, failing anytime soon. So they seem to be pretty reliable, and so I go ahead and swap those out as part of my preventative maintenance on those. For a lot of other models, though, I found that the original flybacks, even 30, 40 years later, tend to be more reliable than some of the replacements do. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I did a 20 EZ and a Popeye just a few days ago, and did a full cap kit on it and rebuilt the audio amp, but the flyback was still fine. So I just left it be, and I let it stress test for 48, 72 hours before I consider it good, and it passed the test and did just fine, and typically it will. But I know that like G07s and K7000s in particular, I have had cases where it's the original flyback. I install a cap kit, and the next day or even before that flyback has failed. And so I got to replace the flyback and the hot and anything else it took out in the process.
I always replace FR401, that big white resistor. That one is usually corroded and falling apart when you get a G07, and so I've got like a stack of those resistors. I forget the rating.
Yeah, or even just the legs have corroded.
Yeah,
I haven't actually replaced
you can
one of
just
those.
yank it out.
Yeah, you can take a pair of needle nose and just wiggle the thing and it pops off. So I've got like a whole pack of those resistors, and I always replace those. And also the arcade shop cap kit. I forget the specific location of it, but it comes with a resistor now.
R908.
And yeah, so it has. Kay, do you know
47K ohm resistor that typically gets replaced? Yeah.
Yeah, so has that one in particular been failing a lot recently? Because at one point the arcade shop kit did not come with that resistor.
I worked on quite a few G07s where I did the full repair where it's caps, fly, hot, and VR, and I'm still having issues. And floor charts and stuff usually point towards that exact resistor, and I'd found failed ones before. So yeah, they come with the cap kits now, and even if that still tests good, I usually replace it anyway.
I had to replace it in the G07 in my Carnival, and like Jeremiah was saying, it looked all corroded, and basically, you touch it and it fell apart.
So that was, I think we're talking about the FR401, and I think Kay was
the fusible resistor. It's a ceramic resistor originally, and it's just got these thin little legs that come out of it and go into the deflection board. And yeah, those typically, like a lot of times, they're green, and you can grab that thing with your fingers and just yank, and it's going to come off in your hands. So that's usually a good idea to replace that one too.
We have Frog Puppet mentioning something that's got the chat going a little bit. He's asking for a good method for cleaning chassis boards. He's skeptical of the hose method. Skeptical of the hose method. So I think what he's alluding to is, a lot of us have done. I've done a video. Chance from the Canadian Arcade did a video that was really popular on cleaning chassis and even just entire monitors, right? I've done it where you take the monitor, you stick it in the grass in the yard, Spray it with Simple Green. Take the garden hose on very low pressure, rinse that off. I'll usually then come in with a soft bristle brush and kind of like loosen up a bunch of the grime, and then rinse and repeat. And then it's very important to let it dry completely, and obviously you've discharged the monitor and all that kind of stuff. People often, get freaked out and they're like, oh, isn't the tube going to fill once you take the anode cup off? Isn't it going to fill through that hole? Not realizing that, what that hole actually is. It's not a hole into the monitor, right? The monitor itself is a vacuum. The CRT is actually like a giant vacuum tube. And that hole maybe holds like a thimble full of water. It's really just a dimple for the anode to grab onto. One thing you have to be careful of with that method, though, is not to accidentally wash off your DAG, your aqua DAG, right? So that's the kind of graphite paint that's painted onto the back of the CRT and provides like a grounding point, and like the DAG wire will make contact with that. And some of the black and whites almost have springs that kind of, push up against and make contact with that. There are some types of that aqua DAG that are water soluble. So if you really spray the water onto that, you can accidentally rinse the aqua DAG off. Now you can repair that. You can buy it and repaint it on. I know some people have even just bought, like, not actually technically aqua DAG. They've bought some like graphite paint, and that was good enough. So that is something you have to be careful of. So you don't want to like, brush that with the brush at all. But yeah, I do it all the time. Russell in the chat is saying, Mike from Mike's Amateur Arcade Monitor Repair cleans chassis like that all the time. What about you guys? Do you have, do you leave them filthy and just deal with, your
just do compressed air? I have a big compressor and just compressed air.
But that'll knock off like, debris. But what about all that grime and nicotine tar, right? The compressed air is not going to do that.
No, but I have not put them through a dishwasher either. I've been disabused of that notion. I don't want to stick them in there. Just don't want to put something where you would also put food items.
Yeah.
You don't have a dedicated dishwasher for PCBs?
We do have a second dishwasher, but it's probably going to be used for stuff from the cocktail lounge.
Yeah. Well, there are also PCBs in the cocktail lounge. So, yeah, on the newest episode of Coin Up Corner that'll come out by my 10th wedding anniversary, and I'm still single. I use the water hose method on a G07, and I am going to do, next time I have to do any service on any of my G07s, because previously I had just left them filthy, I'm going to put them through the water hose, because you spray that thing down, hold your hand over the hose and get some high pressure on it. You let it dry, put it under a fan like Charlie mentioned. That thing's going to be gorgeous afterwards, and you will never get it that clean with Q-tips and rubbing alcohol. I guess you could spend 3 or 4 weeks doing it and you may get a similar result, but as long as you don't put power through the thing while it's wet, you're not going to short anything out. Water doesn't magically make these boards not work. It's just if it shorts something out. So there's nothing wrong with putting some high pressure water on it and letting it dry and then using it. If anything, it's going to be safer because now you don't have all that nicotine creating continuity where there wasn't some before.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of the hose method. Simple Green and just hosing it down will work wonders, especially if you're trying to work on a chassis that's just so filthy, like you can't make out what the Silkscreen says, so you don't even know where, these caps you're trying to change out, you can't even read the descriptions or which side is, negative, which side's positive. West Texas, where I am, has particularly hard water, and so if you don't take the compressed air and blow it off afterwards, your chassis will turn white just from all the minerals and stuff that are in it, and you're basically right back where you started. But the nice thing about West Texas heat is you talk about leave it under a fan for a couple of days or whatever. I can put it in the back seat of a car in the window, and it'll be dry in under an hour, and I would be totally safe hooking it back up and powering it back up, and there wouldn't be a single drop of moisture in there.
You might actually melt something though.
Yes, that's how I redo all the solder points too, because it melts all the solder simultaneously.
Yeah, multitasking, right? You reflow the solder at the same time.
I say typically it's the back bay door of my shop is I've got a hose sitting there because that's how I refill my swamp cooler, but that's also how I wash off PCBs and monitors. And Yeah, I give it a good cleaning. I spray off the majority of the water, and I just let it sit in the sun for a few hours, and that's good enough. I usually won't install it till the next day anyway, just to be safe. But it does not take long for that stuff to dry out in the West Texas sun.
Yeah, and Russell was asking, is it a good idea to use distilled water as a final rinse? I don't know if that might be overkill, right? And
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I don't think
yeah,
it's really necessary. With as bad as the water is in my area, your water's probably not any worse. So you'll probably be fine. A
you
small
could use
story to tell
maybe
about that.
isopropyl alcohol.
Yeah, if you really felt the need to do so, but I don't think it's necessary. To tell a little story about that, back when I worked at Chuck E. Cheese's, I had a water tester that would tell you like parts per million of different particulates that are in the water, and we're supposed to use that to kind of test, the water that goes through our dishwasher and things like that. And the parts per million were so high that the tester wasn't actually able to display it. It basically just showed me a frowny face. It was like, "This is awful. How do you live like this?"
3.6 strong, not good, not bad.
The inside of the dishwasher turned white after one day after preventative maintenance, after running all kinds of stuff through there to clean it out. It did not take long for it to turn white again. So the water in our area is just bad. And if that doesn't mess up a chassis, your water's not going to.
How about something we haven't talked about yet around this topic, which is vector monitors? What do y'all think about working on vector monitors?
I honestly like them better than rasters now. I think they're more logically laid out for me to follow. Just duplicated circuits for X and Y, and just a bunch of transistors. It's pretty easy to go through and figure out what's dead. Last time I had a significant issue on the 6100, it took like 15 minutes to debug it and replace the part and put it back in the machine and get it working again.
Yeah, I think diagnostics wise, it's a lot easier to figure out when it comes to the X and Y's. It's just more laid out and simple. I haven't worked on a whole lot of vectors because they just don't come through the shop as often. But usually it's K6100s that I find in color vector games, and sometimes I forget the model number, but whatever's in asteroids.
It's a G05.
Yeah. I've worked on a few of those. Basically, it's either that if it's black and white, or it's a 6100 if it's color. And those are really the only two I've ever really had to deal with.
And we got breaking news again. Jerry Voluptuous, whose real name is Jerry Generous, with a $5 million super chat donation. Jerry says he's got his wife Nicole watching with him. So Nicole, welcome to the Coin Jam podcast. Jerry, thank you so much. You are so generous. You do this all the time. Jerry's also a Overtime Arcade channel member. Huge supporter. I think you all have heard me mention before. Jerry, I forget that it's is it Manbrozo's? Jerry owns a pizza place outside Philadelphia. Please, Jerry, put a link or something in the live chat. If you're ever in the area, I think it's just south of Philadelphia. Please go patronize or buy pizza, get a salad or something from Jerry's Pizza Shop. I can't wait to get up there myself. So Jerry, again, thank you. What's that?
Is that where Liam got his pizza we had earlier in the episode?
Oh,
nope. We got that from the local grocery store.
This episode
right
sponsored by
Jerry's Pizza. And again, welcome, Nicole. I think we now only have a 99% male audience right here. But
including the dogs. Some of them are female.
Let's see. Come talk arcades with Jerry, because you've also got a couple of machines in your pizza place too that I've seen pictures of. Frog Puppet asks, you're supposed to have a resistor in line when discharging a black and white or vector tubes, correct? So vector, I think the rule of thumb is you don't want to just short it to the chassis using a homemade, when you're discharging a monitor, right, which you always want to do whenever you're pulling one of these out of a cabinet working on them. You always want to discharge the monitor, and typically with a raster monitor, you can get away with a homemade, monitor discharge tool, which is this big screwdriver with a wire attached to it, soldered, wrapped, whatever, to the metal of the screwdriver. Obviously, you want to have an insulated handle so you're not touching, any of that metal.
Yeah,
and then
don't be a
have
wuss.
and have a alligator clip or something on the other end of that wire, and you clip that onto the frame of the monitor of the chassis, and then you put that screwdriver under the anode cup. Now that's okay for rasters, right? But what people always recommend with vector monitors is, like Russell says in the live chat, the recommendation is to use an HV probe, which are not cheap. I think brand new, those are like $200. I think I got mine for
eBay.
50 or 75 on eBay, and that basically allows you to bleed off the voltage more generally. I've also heard you can sort of modify that homemade self-discharge or discharge tool, monitor discharge tool by having it, and don't quote me on the value, but a very high ohm, a high resistance resistor in line that can slow, so it's not just a snap of a discharge, but it kind of bleeds off the voltage.
That's what the high voltage probe basically is a 10 mega ohm resistor stuck in
10
there.
10 mega ohm. But what about black and white vector, or I'm sorry, black and white raster monitors, right? Do you need to take this extra precaution with black and white raster monitors?
Say, before you get into that, I have a much cheaper and easier method that I use to discharge color vector monitors. What I do is I just wait for it to discharge most of it on its own, and then I just do it the regular way. That's what works for me.
6100s do have a self-discharge circuit built in. And it works pretty quickly, too.
Mm. Oh, and Jeremiah retrieved his tool and wanted to, or his monitor discharge tool. There you go. We have the screwdriver with a wire attached to it, and then a alligator clip in the other end of the wire. Just don't touch both ends of that metal at once.
See, I don't have a dedicated tool that I use for that. Half the time I'm dumb, and I do this in my videos, and I tell people specifically not to do it, but I just reach up and grab the anode cup, pull it off by hand, and tap it to the frame myself. Don't do that, by the way.
You terrify me.
Have you shown that on TikTok?
Oh yeah, I've shown that on TikTok multiple times, and I
with
tell
a color
everyone,
vector.
don't do this. Not with a color vector. It's usually just with a raster.
Russell's saying that he got on Amazon a $75 HV probe. I think, Russell, we would all be curious, and not used. And this is like a what's it, like a Fluke Model 70 or something like that, or B&K maybe. If you've got a link or something for that, Russell, I think a lot of us would be curious to hear that. And Kay in the live chat says, once you've been shocked multiple times, you get over the fear. I think all of us, hand up if you've been shocked by a monitor before. Oh yeah.
It's not that bad.
And another thing you got to watch out for is on the G07, if that fuse goes bad, what capacitor is it?
That's the filter cap.
The filter cap, right? And so when I was working on the the G07 and the Carnival, just before I brought it out to wash it, and I had already discharged the anode, I thought to myself, oh, you know what? Like, I had everything set up to wash it. I'm like, oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to discharge the filter cap just in case. And I should have had the camera rolling. But I took my monitor discharge tool and I made sure that the wire was nowhere near to me. And I just shorted with the flat part of the screwdriver, the two leads off of the filter cap on the solder side of the board. And let me tell you, that pop was bang. It was bigger than, and I've done it before and it was never that big. But it was a bigger pop than any anode I've ever discharged before. It was big time. And I showed in the podcast, behind the scenes Discord, the sort of bite marks that it left on my screwdriver, right? And it's a good thing that wasn't my finger as I'm like rotating the chassis or something.
Yeah. I've been good thing, isn't it? Because I've done that, and that was the only time I got shocked with a monitor, was grabbing that cap with that fuse blown, and I got those bite marks in my finger.
You know how I discharge that, or I guess equalize it? I pick up the chassis and I pick it up by the flyback area where it's rubber, and I will take it over to the monitor frame and I will just hit it in a certain way so that both sides hit the frame, and it uses that to equalize itself. Don't use the screwdriver. You'll be like, oh God, no. Yeah, just tap it against the frame. Let it do all the work.
Yeah, just short it to a bunch of other fragile components.
Yeah, just do extremely
Yeah.
dangerous things like I do.
So I've also been shocked before by I was putting my super pack on wheels, and I took the G07 out, the tube out. I discharged it and everything, and I completely took it out and set it on the ground in a different room. And I came back like maybe 12 hours later, and I've heard it explained that just the Earth's magnetic field basically recharges these monitors. So I'm done putting wheels on it, and I go to pick up this monitor, and I grab it around the little hole that the anode cup goes in, and I'm heartily electrocuted by a discharged monitor. And I remembered then and there, oh, these are affected by the Earth's magnetic field. I probably should.
I haven't
Talking
been
earlier
shocked
about
by that.
washing machines or washing monitors. Imagine if that hole was if it was actually hollow and you filled the monitor completely with water. How heavy would that thing be?
Hold it over your head and find out, right? And now, Jeremiah, I have heard that a monitor even completely disconnected, left off by itself, can basically build up a static charge. And I've seen it. I had a monitor that was sitting out for maybe a couple of months, and I'd already discharged it before, and I discharged it again, and I did get a little bit of a pop from that. So it must have, almost like a trickle charge type of, static buildup. I did see, Russell, the link you sent me, and that looks like some kind of Chinese copy of the HV probe that I have. And I think I got a real one for on eBay for a little bit less than $90. So I don't know. I don't know if it comes with the
$8 at Harbor Freight.
$8 at Harbor Freight. Did you see that? No. This is a HV probe, right? One that's designed for.
You don't need that. You just need one of these.
Well, did you see the joke? And now I fully admit that I do buy, often what I consider to be single-use tools at Harbor Freight. And there was a joke I think my cousin posted, but I'm sure it was making the rounds on Facebook, and it had two pictures, and one of it was, here's what $80,000 worth of Snap-on tools looks like, and it's just like a nice sort of mechanics tool chest fully loaded, and then it says here's what $80,000 of Harbor Freight tools looks like, and it's the entire store.
Or that's Harbor Freight for you.
There you go. And you shop there too.
I shop there too, but I don't buy tools there.
I get
tools loosely defined.
I got my high voltage probe off of eBay. I just double checked. I got a Fluke 80K40 for $79.
Yep, that's basically what I paid for mine. And let's see, I shocked myself at least a couple times. The first time I ever did it was working on the XM 1801N in the that I eventually put into the Donkey Kong Jr. cocktail. I think that was the first monitor that I brought back from completely dead, and I made the mistake of just barely brushing my hand against the back of the neckboard while the monitor was on, and that got me. That's one of the reasons they have those little pieces of cardboard or plastic often on the neckboards to prevent you from touching that while the machine is on. And that's often why you see the danger high voltage stickers tend to be like on those pieces of cardboard on that. And I know I've done it again, but perhaps that one was so jarring that I've dislodged it from my memory. And now, we're coming up. We got maybe 15 minutes or so left. We usually try to keep these to about 2 2 hours. Oh, and Wayne says he's got the 80K tool. Been a professional mechanic for 25 years. Yeah, the 80K toolkit. Snap-on. That it's like the Snap-on truck is like the ice cream truck for grown-ups, right? But the thing that sort of Kay alluded to was a topic that I think some of us have very strong opinions of, and I think others are less sort of zealots about it. But it's the eternal religious war between CRTs and LCDs. So who wants to go first, sort of offering their thoughts on that whole dichotomy?
I'll go last because I don't think you'll like my answer.
Okay.
I've done one. So in the Pac-Man video I did, there goes Molly. Hello, Molly. I had a neighbor who wanted a multicade, and I figured, last thing I want to do is have to go to this guy's house every 6 months when the monitor dies. So I offered him a package deal to put a 60-in-1 and an LCD in there. And honestly, if you are not a collector who is into this to repair and preserve, I'd rather you just get an LCD and sell that CRT on, because most of these guys in this hobby, that's the first hurdle they hit. Like it kind of make or breaks you as an arcade collector is, are you going to be able to fix CRTs or not? If you can, great. If not, I mean, that I had, that Pac-Man sat for 3 weeks, the Super Pac-Man sat for 3 weeks without the monitor working. And if you're somebody who's just in it to play games, you're going to say, okay, let me throw this thing in the dump and get an LCD. So I would recommend in the first place just putting in an LCD. They look decent for what they are. They've got some made specifically for the 240p low resolution that these machines run on. They look good enough. You can adjust all the different color temperatures and everything, and they're a lot more reliable, honestly. But part of this hobby is preserving the vintage aesthetic of something that is from that era. So yeah, I've done it before for other people. I highly recommend it for commercial settings or anything where you just want reliability above all else, because it is very hard to preserve those CRTs and keep them running.
Yeah, I don't like the LCDs. I can understand them in a sort of professional context or a context of somebody who just wants to play games. But I raise you, if you're going to be somebody who just wants to play games on an LCD screen, just get a fucking one-up just from the start or something like that, or a custom built MAME machine. I
agree. I agree with you. I don't have a single LCD in my collection.
I don't either, but it's just certain games look really bad on them. You just see like a lot of the way that these sprites were designed was to take advantage of the CRT. And sure, there are some filters which blend it, but like look terrible if there's not. Think like Centipede or even more Robotron, because it's not a frame buffered display. So Robotron will alter its state as it's drawing, and you will not get that on a LCD screen. So you will not always have the most up-to-date quote-unquote frame on the LCD versus the CRT when playing something like Robotron, which is so fast-paced. You actually kind of need that. And it's just when you try to put one of these things in a machine that has a bezel or a shroud or whatnot, it looks terrible because the shroud is designed for something that has a curvature, and that will never fit for a flat screen. So it just looks hacked or fake, which is in a lot of cases. So yeah, definitely in the pro CRT camp. I'll admit that I had for a little while a LCD sitting on top of Gauntlet while I was fixing its original CRT. But as soon as that CRT was fixed, it went right back into Gauntlet. So there is a trade-off now. And now I have spare CRTs, so I wouldn't have to do that again.
Yeah, and this is not to mention games like the House of the Dead, where you have to have a CRT because the light gun tech is dependent upon that instantaneous full white screen like that.
Yeah.
Well, and as much, and I do respect Jeremiah's opinion, and I think he had a very reasonable take on it. However, my personal beliefs on this topic tend to be much more in line with Liam's. And I try very hard not to be a judgmental person, right? I think about it as like, hey, your sins are between you and your maker, right?
And the guy who designed this shirt.
Exactly, right? So for me, right, like to Jeremiah's point, right, there are people out there that take working or broken CRTs, and they will junk them and immediately replace them with an LCD. And I'm happy to go on record publicly and saying, if that's you, I would be happy to buy those CRTs from you in whatever state, as long as the tubes aren't necked, and then they do belong in the landfill. Although there has been discussion of saving necked tubes for 100 years in the future. It's almost like putting them in cryostasis. Someday we'll know how to fix them 100 years from now. But for me, I think about it as, I would assume most of you spend all day staring at LCD screens, right? Whether it's at work or on your phone or watching TV or whatever. When we play with this stuff, that should be more of a special experience, right? If this is something where you're building a cabinet from scratch and you're putting some sort of multi-board in there, then cool, put an LCD in there. But if you are looking for the original experience, the only way you're going to get something that really, really, delivers that authentic experiences with a CRT. And to Liam's point, even later games absolutely incorporated the natural artifacts of the CRT into the design of the pixels. Like famously, Mortal Kombat is like that, right? If you put Mortal Kombat, it wasn't rotoscoping, whatever they called it, basically the digitized characters, you put those unmodified onto a CRT and they look terrible, right? They were designed specifically for the pitch or whatever. I don't even know the technical terms for the artifacts of the CRT, and they will look wrong on anything else. And yeah, you try to reintroduce that with filters, scan line generators, all that kind of stuff, but you're chasing the authentic thing. People also often say that CRTs are difficult to work on. And there's plenty of folks like us that think it's fun to work on them. There's others that will do it for a relatively small fee, right? Send that chassis to somebody and they'll fix it for you, right? Like the G07 in my Centipede has really not been touched. I don't think it's ever been capped. It has all its original stuff, and it's still a perfectly working monitor, right? These cheap LCDs that people buy now for $100 or less, you think that's going to last 40 years? So I know, again, to each their own. I won't begrudge anybody for doing that unless they are junking CRTs, and in that case, I will set up an anonymous like abandon your CRT here and it will be
CRT
cared for.
Dropbox.
Exactly, right? Like they have at the fire station, right? I'll have it outside my house. You can put your CRTs in here. But yeah, I know Kay has a somewhat different take, but happy to hand the floor to you now.
Say, I'm definitely not a purist by any mark of the definition. But I certainly do appreciate the way that a good working CRT works in an original dedicated classic game. If you bring me a Pac-Man that has a bad monitor, I'm not going to put a flat screen in it, no matter what is wrong with that CRT. I'll either fix it or I'll replace it, just because it's an original game. It deserves that. But whenever I build a 60-in-1 out of an old 8-liner cabinet, I will totally put an LCD in it, because I mean it's native to that board. It's what it's designed to get. You can put a CRT in there and it does look good, but it's a multi. I will take the CRT out of that and I will set it aside and I will put it into an arcade machine that needs it. I think Frog Pebble said there in the chat earlier, there's going to come a point where you need to save the CRTs for the games that deserve them. And I'm a proponent of that. So I will take a nice 19-inch CRT out of that machine, and eventually I'll come across an original dedicated machine that straight up does not have a CRT in it, whether it's got no monitor at all or someone changed it to LCD, and I'll change it back to CRT because that's what that machine deserves. You can take a look in my shop and you'll know that I don't throw away tubes unless they're necked, or if I hook up my CR7000 to it and it can't be saved, it can't be rejuvenated, it's just dead. Then I'll toss it. But I don't toss any chassis just because I can't figure out how to work on it. I've got shelves that are full of chassis just sitting there, either for spare parts or for me to come back and try to fix later. And that thing is overflowing. I got wires and chassis sitting everywhere. There's no method to that madness whatsoever. It's shelves that could probably only realistically hold about 20 chassis that I've got 50, kind of shoved onto. So I don't throw any of that kind of stuff away, unless it's a Hunter Rex Polo. Then I'll put a bullet through it. But
I haven't encountered a Polo yet, but I've heard so many stories about them.
They're not ideal, but if I were an operator, I would probably absolutely be okay with putting LCDs in a lot of machines, just because of not having to go and repair them all the time. And most people don't care. The average Joe out there who's going to play a game in the wild does not notice the difference, does not care. So in an operator setting, I get it. I don't like it, but I understand it. For my own personal collection, I've got one game with an LCD in it, and it's a multicade, so it's not that big a deal. But my Miss Pack has a CRT. My Play Choice 10 has 2 CRTs. I'm not going to put flat screens in those. I just repair those monitors if I needed to. There's a retro arcade that I have sold a lot of machines to in a town in my hometown, and he doesn't have LCDs in pretty much anything. He's got a couple of machines that are newer that you can kind of get away with it, but all his 80s classics have original CRTs that were probably rebuilt by me, just to keep that whole 80s feel going. Because if you just put a bunch of one-ups in there, or if you have a bunch of machines that just have a flat screen kind of slapped in, especially if you didn't do the work to actually get the bezel to match, or have the LCD like sitting to it that's actually close to the screen and not like recessed way back, it just looks like garbage. And people do notice that if you're kind of going for that retro feel, because it doesn't have that retro feel. But I also sell to a couple of barcades, and they're not really going for that retro look. They're just going for, hey, these machines work and you can play them. And so they're not real skittish about CRT versus LCD. They just want it to work. So I have sold them some machines that have LCDs in them, just because it was a really high resolution CRT to find, or a medium resolution CRT to find, and it was just easier to put a flat screen in there because they wanted something that worked, and that worked for them. So I'm not too skittish about it. I don't like it. And when it comes to original dedicated machines, I actually try to keep a CRT in there as best I can. But if you just want a machine to work, an LCD is not a death sentence.
Well, and I agree with most of what you said. I do know though, and I'm definitely not the target audience, right? I'm not the core demographic, but when I go to a barcade and I see, a bunch of games with CRT or with flat screens instead of CRTs, I am a little bit disappointed. I'm not gonna not go. I'm not gonna not play them. I'm not gonna send an anonymous terrible Yelp review or whatever. But it always breaks my heart a little bit. One sort of morbid thought that I had though is, we talk about the availability of monitors and of CRTs and tubes and whatever. I think there's something coming that is actually going to temporarily be an increase in supply, right? So similar to how as operators from the 80s, from the original era, sort of get older and kind of passed away, you had all these warehouse raids where all of these classic machines would become available onto the market all of a sudden, 100, 200, 1,000 at a time, sitting in a dusty warehouse, would just become available when the estate of that former operator was liquidating the assets. I think that hopefully, maybe 50 years from now or even longer, a lot of collectors who have stockpiles of monitors in their basements, in their garages, in their sheds, whatever, as those folks pass away, who had been stockpiling CRTs, and those, stuff gets liquidated in estate sales. Hopefully those don't just all end up in dumpsters, but become available to those of us who are still alive and kicking and working on these things, 50 years from now.
Yeah, I've had a lot of experience with operators that worked back in the 80s and 90s that have just been sitting on their stuff, and they absolutely refuse to get rid of it at any price, just because they still have that old school operator mentality of, I don't want to sell to my competition. Even though they haven't been operating for 30 years, they still have that mentality, and they're still stubborn. And whenever I come across someone like that, they've got a lot of stuff I want, but they're not willing to sell, I'm willing to walk away, because I know whenever that hoarder dies, their kids will get rid of that stuff for real cheap, and they'll call me first because I'm the only guy who's local.
You're rarely getting a market price at an estate liquidation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe one last thing that we haven't really talked about much has been rejuvenation. You mentioned it briefly, Kay. You mentioned it briefly, Jeremiah or Liam. I know I don't know if Jeremiah owns a rejuvenator. Both myself and Kay do, and that's something that I've really started doing more in the last year or two. And I have not yet been stumped by one that I wasn't able to improve at least a little bit with a rejuvenator. Some definitely respond better than others, both based on the model and the tube itself and how tired it is. But Kay, maybe would you say Rejuvenator is a absolutely essential tool if you're really going to be working on a lot of these monitors?
Absolutely. If you don't have one, have a friend local who has one that you can borrow. I have a Syncor CR7000 that I was sold to me from a tech at the local Mr. Gaddy's, who he sold it to me for $150, and it came with all the adapters and the book and everything I'd possibly need for it, because he didn't really have any CRTs left in the store to deal with. So I picked up that thing, and that thing has paid for itself 1,000 times over. It's one of the best investments I've ever made. And I think the entire time I've been doing it, I've only ever come across one monitor that was so completely dead that the Rejuvenator, even at its highest setting, couldn't do anything for it. And that was a Cinematronics monitor and an Armor Attack. That's the only completely dead monitor that wasn't decked that I've ever come across.
Yeah, and I've got a B&K 467. I actually have two. One of them works. One of them mostly works. I'm having issues with the blue circuit in that one. And what's nice is between the two of them that I both got off of eBay, I have basically every adapter, every neck adapter that was made for them, which is fantastic, because you also not just, you don't have to just get a Rejuvenator, right? There's a lot of different ones. You have to make sure that you've got the right the adapters for them. And was it the 23, 24, 31? Those are some of those are the common
the
ones.
CR23 and CR31, I think, are the ones that I see the most. My adapters are different because it's not a B&K, but mine are just 1 through 8. And adapter number 1, 95% of the monitors use that adapter. That's the only one I ever use. Some of them use number 5 if it's got like a really skinny neck board. That's the one for that. And then I've got a universal adapter that just has all these individual pins that you can clamp onto, like basically alligator clips that you can clamp onto each individual pin, and the manual will tell you what goes where. And so if you've got one that is so unique that there is no adapter for it, you can actually just hook up these individual pieces and make your own adapter.
Yep.
And I've had to do that a couple times, especially in like some of the older black and white ones, and that's worked out really well too. So, like I said, it's one of my 3 best investments of all time when it comes to working on arcade stuff. It's my tube tester, which I've used just to test tubes too, because sometimes you can just hook it up and see how your levels are on each gun, and that'll tell you if you even need to recap your monitor or anything like that. There might be nothing wrong with the chassis, might just be the tube needing a little bit of life shot back into it. But my tube tester is number 1. Number 2 was my swamp cooler and my very large uninsulated, unair conditioned shop. And number 3 is my lift gate, which my back thanks me for every day.
Well, and I think the 2 last sort of shout outs I'll give for resources out there. The first one is a website called Tubular, which is tubular.atomized.org. And this is a database of all kinds of settings and pinouts and tube compatibility. So and I think that's by that website is maintained by Ian from the Coin Rejects podcast. No affiliation, but it's a great podcast. Tubular.atomized.org, because also if you're working on a rejuving a tube, you need to look up the settings to dial in your Rejuvenator, the heater voltage and whatever. And you can try to find those old booklets that had all those lookup tables for those tubes, but that website Tubular has so much of that in there. And also, if you need to swap a tube, it's got sort of compatibility lists. Something that you might pick up a TV from the side of the road and crack it open and put it in there. It gives you sort of a compatibility list. And lastly, there is a really good group on Facebook, which is the B&K Rejuvenators group. It's run by Bruce, who I've met a few times. Bruce is a great guy and helped me out quite a bit. So be sure to check that out if you're interested in learning more about working on Rejuvenators or rejuvenating your monitor, anything like that. So I think we're coming up on 2 hours. And probably good to wrap up here. I don't know if we want to go around and sort of give everyone a reminder on where they can find you on the internet. Jeremiah, if you want to go first.
My name is Jeremiah Jackson. I run the Corn Up Corner YouTube channel. I don't upload regularly, but I've got a decent back catalog if you like watching sort of all-in-one repair videos where it's not a series, it's just all in the one video. And I've got a few more videos coming up in the future.
Awesome. Liam, how about you?
I am now 1/3 of Retrobotics. We are working on hopefully some new projects in the future. We're going to talk more about Smash TV and asteroids and hopefully talk about our journey to Fun Spot, the arcade mecca, coming up soon. And we will hopefully have some more content out shortly.
It sounds like Ripley fell asleep.
Finally, hopefully.
And Kay, how about you?
I'm Kay. I'm 100% of Prime Arcade Sales and Repair down here in West Texas. You can find me mostly on TikTok. I have Facebook as well, which is more for business stuff, but all my TikTok videos just get reposted on Facebook. So if you're looking to see the content, TikTok is the way to go, at prime_arcade. Yeah, that's it. I don't have anything else. I thought I did, but I don't.
Awesome. And I'm Charlie from Overtime Arcade. You already know where Overtime Arcade is because that's where you're watching this right now. I do videos typically every Sunday afternoon, and sometimes I'll throw like a short or something in during the week. This podcast, if you're watching it right now, will also get uploaded to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and basically every major podcast platform over the next day or two. So thank you for watching here on YouTube. If you were doing that, you can also watch it on demand on YouTube afterwards, or you can listen to the audio version once I edit out Liam's one cuss word from about 10 or 15 minutes
It was about one
Sorry
ups. It's
about that.
understandable. I get it.
Awesome.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. It's all good. Thanks, guys, for joining. Thanks, everybody, for watching. A special thanks to all Overtime Arcade channel members, and also to Jerry Voluptuous and Stringer Films for their very generous super chat donations. That's it. This was episode 6 of the Coin Jam podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me see if I can do the video. Maybe if the sound will, I'll get the sound going on. I'll figure this out.
I got a 20% success rate. I'm feeling confident.